Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're doing something a little bit different.
Yeah, definitely a change of pace for us.
Right. Usually we're tearing apart, the latest tech trends or some incredibly dense piece of economic theory. But today, we're slowing down. We're opening up a book that, honestly, I guarantee you have seen.
Oh, without a doubt, it's everywhere.
Yeah, maybe it was sitting in a hostel in Thailand, or maybe it was on your CEO's bookshelf, or maybe your aunt gave it to you for graduation and you just never opened it.
Guilty as charged on that last one.
Same here.
Yeah.
We were talking about The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. I have to be honest with you, when I first picked this up, I was pretty skeptical.
I mean, it makes sense. The premise sounds, well, very simple.
Exactly.
Eh.
Thought, okay, a fable about a shepherd boy in Spain.
Oh, yeah.
Is this going to be like a children's book?
Yeah.
But having gone through this stack of research and all the analysis we have for this deep dive, I realized I was just way off base.
Completely off base.
It's not just a story. It's this very specific, very aggressive, philosophical argument that's just disguised as a fairy tale.
Deceptive is really the best word for it. It looks like a simple folk tale. Boy seeks treasure, boy travels, boy learns lessons. But underneath that simple narrative is a really dense web of ideas about fate, about human will, and what Coehlo calls the personal legend.
Right.
It's a book that functions almost like a mirror. Depending on where you are in your own life when you read it, you see something totally different.
And that is exactly what we want to do today. We aren't just going to give you the basic SparkNotes version of the plot. We're going to unpack the philosophy, the symbolism, and frankly, the roadmap that this text tries to lay out for living a meaningful life.
Which means we have to start at the very beginning, the prologue.
Oh man, the prologue. Because usually, let's be real, people skip the prologue.
Guilty again.
Right, it's just the warm-up act usually. But the sources we have highlight that the prologue here is actually the key to unlocking the entire book.
Absolutely. If you skip it, you completely miss the lens through which you were supposed to view the rest of the story.
So set it up for us.
So it starts with the alchemist character reading a book of his own, and he's reading the myth of Narcissus.
Okay, let's pause there because I think everyone knows the Narcissus story. Or, well, at least we think we do.
The classic version, yeah.
Right, the classic version is a really attractive guy, completely obsessed with himself, stares at his reflection in a lake, falls in, and drowns. A flower grows. The end. Moral of this story is don't be vain.
Yeah, that is the version we all learned in school. It's a straight-up cautionary tale about ego. But the version in the book...
And it flips it.
It flips the script entirely. In the version the alchemist is reading, after Narcissus dies, the forest goddesses, the Oreads, they come down to the lake.
Right.
And they find that the lake has transformed from fresh water into this pool of salty tears.
And naturally, they ask the lake why it's crying, which, makes sense.
Right. The goddesses assume the lake is sad because Narcissus is dead. I say, well, we aren't surprised you're crying. You were the only one who got to see his beauty up close every single day.
And this is where the hammer drops.
Yes. The lake asks a question that changes everything. The lake asks, was Narcissus beautiful?
I love that moment so much. The goddesses are just flabbergasted.
Yeah.
They're like, what do you mean? You're the one who was staring at him.
And the lake's response is...
It gave me chills, honestly.
It's incredible. The lake says, I weep for Narcissus, but I never noticed that Narcissus was beautiful. I weep because each time he knelt beside my banks, I could see in the depths of his eyes my own beauty reflected.
It is such a wild inversion.
Think about what that does philosophically. It takes a story about isolation and pure vanity, and it turns it into a story about connection.
The Alchemist calls it a lovely story.
Right. And it signals to the reader immediately to stop looking at things in isolation. The lake wasn't just this passive object for Narcissus to look at. It was an active participant. It suggests that everything is reflecting everything else.
We are all mirrors.
Exactly. We are all mirrors, and it frames the entire mission of our deep dive today. We aren't just watching a boy walk across a map from Spain to Egypt. We are watching a boy learn how to interact with a universe that is constantly interacting back with him.
Which brings us to part one, the call to adventure. So let's meet the boy, Santiago.
Santiago, yeah.
He's a shepherd in Andalusia in Spain. But he's a weird shepherd, right? Because most shepherds in literature are, uneducated, simple guys. But Santiago's carrying books around.
He is, and that is a really crucial detail to his character. Santiago actually went to seminary. He was actively studying to be a priest. His parents were simple farm people, and for them, having a son become a priest was the ultimate goal.
It meant prestige.
Prestige, a guaranteed income. It basically meant you made it.
It was the safe, respectable path that parents want for their kids.
Precisely. But Santiago, he has this itch. He looks at his life, and he looks at the sheep, and he realizes something deeply disturbing to him.
Which is?
That the sheep have food, and they have water, and they are safe, but they have no concept of where they actually are. They walk a new road every day, but they never look up. They are just consuming.
Wow.
And he realizes he wants way more than just survival. He wants to know the world.
There's that great scene where he confronts his father. And I think this resonates with a lot of people today. It's that difficult conversation where you tell your parents you aren't going to be a doctor or a lawyer or, in his case, a priest. You're going to go just wander.
It's a very tender scene, actually. His father tries to use logic on him. He says, look, people come from all over the world to see our castles and our cities, but they leave the exact same people they were when they arrived.
He's basically saying travel is just a distraction. Real life is right here at home.
Yeah, but the interesting part is he doesn't stop him.
He doesn't.
No. The father actually reaches into a pouch and gives him 3 ancient Spanish gold coins. He tells him to go buy a flock. But the text makes a point to note that Santiago saw a glint in his father's eye.
A glint of what?
A desire to travel. A desire that was still alive inside his dad, just buried under decades of responsibility and the pressure of being realistic.
Oh, man, that is heartbreaking. The dad is essentially letting the son live the life he was too afraid to live himself.
Exactly.
So Santiago gets his sheep, he gets his jacket, he gets his book, and for a while he's totally happy, he's living the dream, he's a traveling shepherd. But then the universe starts poking him. He starts having this recurring dream.
The dream of the child. He dreams that a child is playing with his sheep and then takes him by the hand, transports him all the way to the Egyptian pyramids and says, if you come here, you will find a hidden treasure.
But, and this is classic annoying dream logic, he always wakes up right before the child points to the exact spot where the treasure is.
Right, which is incredibly frustrating.
So he does what anyone in a fable would naturally do. He goes to a gypsy woman in Tarifa to get the dream interpreted. And honestly, when reading this, I expected this to be a big mystical moment with crystal balls and smoke. But it's kind of just a business transaction.
It really is. It's highly transactional. She listens to the dream and basically says, okay, simple. Go to the pyramids. You'll find a treasure. That'll be 1/10 of the treasure, please.
And Santiago is super annoyed by this. He thinks, well, I could have interpreted that myself. He wanted some deep symbolic meaning. He wanted to hear that the pyramids represent like higher learning or spiritual growth.
But she's like, no, literal treasure. Go get the gold.
Yeah.
She tells him something really important, though. She says, it's the simple things in life that are the most extraordinary, and only wise men are able to understand them.
That's a great line.
We humans have a massive tendency to overcomplicate things because we think complexity equals value.
Right.
And she just cuts right through all that.
So Santiago leaves her place, feeling like he just got scammed, or at least that he wasted his afternoon. He sits down in a plaza to read his book. He's basically ready to just give up on the dream entirely and keep being a shepherd.
And this is the moment. This is the real catalyst.
An old man sits down next to him.
Melchizedek, the king of Salem. Now, this character is fascinating because he appears in the actual Bible. He appears in various mystical traditions. He is a high-level spiritual figure. But here in the book, he's initially just an annoying old guy interrupting Santiago's reading time.
Yeah, he starts a conversation, and Santiago tries to brush him off. But then the old man does something literally impossible. He writes in the sand with a stick, and he writes the names of Santiago's parents, the name of the seminary he went to, and the name of the girl Santiago currently has a crush on.
Things Santiago has never spoken aloud to anyone.
Right. That's the hook. That completely grabs Santiago's attention. And then Melchizedek pivots to the core philosophy of the book. He starts talking about the personal legend.
Let's unpack this concept, because personal legend is a term that gets thrown around a lot in self-help circles now, and it's largely because of this book. But in the actual text, what does it truly mean?
Well, it's defined as what you have always wanted to accomplish. Melchizedek explains that when we are young, everyone knows their personal legend. It's that clear, burning desire you have as a kid. Maybe it's to be an astronaut or a writer or an explorer. It's so clear.
But he says as time goes on, a mysterious force begins to convince us that it will be impossible to realize that legend.
And this leads to what he calls the world's greatest lie. I highlighted this in the notes because it felt like a direct attack on modern adulthood. What exactly is the lie?
The lie is this. At a certain point in our lives, we lose control of what's happening to us, and our lives become controlled by fate.
I feel like you hear that every single day.
Mhm.
People say, I can't quit my job, I have a mortgage. Or I can't move, my family is here. It's this pervasive idea that external circumstances dictate your entire reality.
Exactly. Melchizedek is arguing that this is a falsehood we willingly accept to avoid the sheer difficulty of pursuing what we actually want. And to prove his point to Santiago, he points to a baker working in the plaza window.
Oh, the baker story. This one hit me really hard.
It's brutal. He points to this baker and says, when he was a child, that man wanted to travel too. But he decided first to buy his bakery and put some money aside. When he's an old man, he's going to go to Africa for a month.
Which, to be fair, sounds like a sensible plan. That is exactly what our financial advisors tell us to do. Save up, retire, then go have fun.
But Melchizedek points out the hidden cost of that plan. He says the baker chose this path because bakers are more important people than shepherds. Parents would rather their daughter marry a baker than a wandering shepherd.
So the baker sacrificed his desire, his personal legend, on the altar of social status.
Yes. He cared more about how people perceived his life than how he actually lived it.
Ouch. So the baker is secure, he has a solid roof, he has community status, but he completely gave up the dream. Whereas Santiago is homeless, probably smells like sheep, but he is actively living his legend.
That is the trade-off. And this is exactly where Melchizedek drops the most famous quote of the entire book. He says, when you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it.
Now, can we challenge that for just a second? Because that sounds lovely, it sounds great on a coffee mug, but is it true? Or is it just confirmation bias? Like, if I decide I want a red car, suddenly I start seeing red cars everywhere on the highway.
That is a very valid critique. In psychology, we would call that the Bader-Meinhof phenomenon. But in the context of the book's philosophy, it's talking about the soul of the world. The idea is that your deep desire actually originates from the universe itself.
So when you act on it, you aren't fighting the current. You are the current.
Right. Melchizedek calls it the principle of favorability.
Which he also calls beginner's luck.
Yes. He says the universe gives you a win early on to whet your appetite. It's the hook. Because if the first step of any journey was pure misery, nobody would ever start. So the universe makes the start feel exciting and magical.
So Santiago is thoroughly convinced. He decides he's going to go. But Melchizedek charges a fee for his advice. And this is interesting. He doesn't want the future treasure like the gypsy did. He wants 1/10 of Santiago's current sheep.
This is a crucial lesson in commitment from the sources. The gypsy asked for something Santiago didn't have yet, the future gold in Egypt. That is very easy to promise. Sure, if I win the lottery tomorrow, I'll buy you a car.
Right, there's no risk.
But Melchizedek asked for what Santiago actually has right now. He has to give up his hard assets. He has to burn the bridge. If you don't pay a real price for the start of the journey, you won't value the journey itself.
So he sells the flock. He gives the king 6 sheep. He gets his boat ticket to Africa. And just before he leaves, the king tells him one last story. The story of the oil and the spoon.
This is, in my opinion, the absolute best definition of balance I've ever read.
Walk us through it.
So a boy goes to a wise man asking for the secret of happiness. The wise man gives him a spoon with 2 drops of oil in it and says, walk around my palace, look at all the art, but do not spill the oil.
The boy comes back, and he hasn't spilled a single drop. But the wise man asks, did you see my Persian tapestries? Did you see the intricate gardens? And the boy says no. He was staring at the spoon the entire time.
So the wise man sends him back out. He says, go see the marvels of my house. The boy goes out, looks at everything, takes in the beauty, has a great time. He comes back, and the wise man asks, where is the oil? The boy looks down. The spoon is completely empty. He spilled it while he was looking around.
And the ultimate lesson is,
the wise man tells him the secret of happiness is to see all the marvels of the world and never to forget the drops of oil on the spoon.
that is profound. The oil represents your core responsibility. For Santiago, it was his sheep initially. Later, it becomes his personal legend. You can't just be a careless tourist in life drifting around looking at pretty things without any deeper purpose. That is spilling the oil.
But you also can't be so hyper obsessed with your job or your one specific goal that you never look up and see the tapestry of life around you.
It's about holding that tension, purpose and presence. You really need both.
Exactly. So, armed with this wisdom and two magic stones called Urim and Thummim to help him make decisions, Santiago gets on a boat.
And this brings us to part 2. He lands in Tangier, in Africa.
Mm.
And here is where the whole universe conspiring to help you theory takes a massive, massive hit. Because he's been in Africa for, what, maybe 2 hours? And he gets completely robbed.
Completely wiped out. And it's embarrassing, too. He meets a guy in a bar who speaks Spanish, and Santiago thinks he's made a friend. He trusts this guy with all his money to go buy camels. The guy walks into a crowded market. Santiago gets distracted by a beautiful sword for 2 seconds, turns around, and the guy is just gone.
This is the ultimate reality check. He is stuck in a foreign country. He doesn't speak a word of Arabic. He has no money, no sheep. He's sleeping in the middle of a market plaza. This is the exact moment where 99% of people would say, okay, message received, bad idea. I am going home.
He definitely considers it. He has a moment of deep despair. He feels like a total fool. But then he touches the stones in his pocket. He remembers the king. And he undergoes a cognitive shift that our sources identify as the major turning point of the whole book.
He realizes he has a choice in how he frames his own narrative.
Yes, he thinks to himself, I can be a victim of a thief, or I can be an adventurer in quest of his treasure.
It sounds like such a subtle difference in wording, but it changes his entire biochemistry.
It changes everything. If you are a victim, you are powerless. You're just waiting for rescue. But if you are an adventurer, then getting robbed is just a plot twist. It's part of the story. It means you are still in the game. He looks at the market not as this scary, hostile place, but as a brand new setting for his adventure.
So he picks himself up, walks up the hill, and finds a shop, the crystal shop. And we need to spend some real time here, because part 2 of the book is heavily dominated by this crystal merchant.
The crystal merchant is one of the most tragic and relatable characters in all of modern literature. He is a good man, he's devout, he's kind, but he is entirely frozen.
His shop is at the top of a massive hill, business is completely dead, and he's just sitting there letting time pass. Santiago comes in and offers to clean the crystal glasses in the window in exchange for some food.
And notice the dynamic that happens right away. Santiago starts cleaning, putting in effort, and immediately 2 customers walk in and buy crystal. Motion creates motion. The merchant sees this and hires him. But very quickly they start to butt heads. Because Santiago is a natural innovator, he wants to build a display case outside for the hill climbers. He wants to sell mint tea in the crystal glasses.
And the merchant hates it. Every time Santiago suggests an improvement, the merchant sighs and says, why? We're doing okay.
The merchant represents the good enough trap. But there is something much deeper driving his fear of expansion. We find out that the merchant, being a devout Muslim, has a lifelong dream to go on a pilgrimage to Mecca. It's the 5th pillar of Islam. He has the money. He could easily hire someone to watch the shop. But he won't go.
Santiago asks him point blank, why don't you go?
And the answer is just haunting. He says, it's the thought of Mecca that keeps me alive. That's what helps me face these days that are all the same, these mute crystal vessels on the shelves. I'm afraid that if my dream is realized, I'll have no reason to go on living.
That is so dark. He genuinely prefers the dream of Mecca to the reality of Mecca.
Exactly. The dream is his primary coping mechanism. It's a beautiful fantasy he visits in his head to escape his boring day-to-day life. If he actually goes and completes the pilgrimage, he consumes the dream. It's gone.
He's terrified that the reality might be disappointing. Or worse, that once it's done, he will just be empty inside.
He chooses the safety of longing over the risk of fulfillment.
I think a huge number of people do that. We have that one-day project, one day I'll write that novel, one day I'll start that business, but we never actually start. Because as long as we don't start, it can remain a perfect, flawless, potential masterpiece in our heads. If we actually write it, it might suck.
Precisely. The merchant is the anti-Santiago. Santiago acts. The merchant just observes. The merchant actually tells Santiago, you are forcing me to look at wealth and horizons I have never known. Now that I have seen them, I'm going to feel worse than I did before you arrived.
Because he knows what's possible now.
Right. He says, because I know the things I should be able to accomplish, and I simply don't want to do so.
Ignorance was bliss. But despite all his complaining, he does allow the changes. He says, maktub, which means it is written. And the shop just explodes. Business is booming. They are selling tea in crystal glasses to thousands of people climbing the hill. Santiago becomes rich.
They work together for a full year. Santiago learns Arabic, he learns how to trade, and he makes enough money to buy double the flock of sheep he had back in Spain, plus a ticket back home.
And that is the plan. He's going home. He achieved success. He proved he could survive in a harsh world. He packs his bags. But as he's packing, he finds the stones again. Urim and Thummim.
And the stones remind him that the goal was never to get rich selling crystal. The goal was the pyramids. He stands at this major threshold. He thinks, I can always go back to being a shepherd. I know how to do that. I might never have another chance to get to the pyramids.
He realizes that returning to Spain is really just another form of the crystal merchant's safety. It's comfortable, the desert is unknown, but he chooses the unknown. He takes his money and he joins a caravan.
Which brings us to part 3, the caravan. And here we meet a character who is basically me, the Englishman.
The Englishman.
Yeah.
He's surrounded by massive crates of books. He's traveling to a specific oasis to find a famous alchemist. He firmly believes that the secret to the universe is found in complex study and decoding texts.
He is the ultimate intellectual. He represents book learning. And the book sets up a really interesting debate here between him and Santiago. The Englishman spends the entire journey reading about alchemy, trying to decipher complicated codes. Santiago spends the journey looking at the desert, listening to the wind, and watching the caravan drivers.
And the Englishman gets frustrated because Santiago isn't studying. But Santiago is like, I am studying. I'm studying the caravan.
The Englishman is looking for the universal language in syntax and diagrams. Santiago is looking for it in the present moment. There's a great scene where the Englishman tries to explain the Emerald Tablet.
Right, the Emerald Tablet is supposed to contain the most important text in all of alchemy. But the wild part is, it fits on a single jewel.
Which drives the Englishman absolutely crazy. He has crates of heavy books to explain something that fits on a jewel. He loves complexity. He thinks truth must be complicated to be valuable. Santiago looks at it and thinks, well, if it fits on a jewel, maybe the truth is actually simple.
While they are traveling, they deeply discuss the soul of the world. This is the metaphysical backbone of the entire book. How would you explain it to someone listening who hasn't read the text?
It's the idea of deep, profound interconnectedness. Panpsychism in philosophy. The idea that everything, a rock, a bush, a camel, a person, has a soul, and all those souls are part of one massive, unified web. That is the soul of the world. And because we're all part of the exact same thing, we can understand each other without words. That is the universal language.
And alchemy, the act of turning lead into gold, isn't just a neat chemical trick in this context.
No, and this is what the Englishman eventually manages to explain clearly. For the alchemist, lead isn't just a base metal. It's a metal that hasn't reached its full potential yet. Lead actually has a personal legend to become gold. The alchemist's job is to help the lead evolve. It's a metaphor for us. We are the lead. We are heavy, gray, and static. Our job is to undergo the fire and evolve into gold, which is our highest spiritual self.
I really like that. It's not magic, it's evolution. But the journey itself gets dangerous. There are tribal wars breaking out in the desert. The caravan has to travel in total silence. And eventually, they reach the Al Fayoum oasis, the safe haven. And this is where the genre shifts again. It goes from an adventure story straight into a romance.
Enter Fatima, the woman at the well.
Now, I have to play the skeptic here for a minute. Santiago sees this girl, looks into her eyes, and boom, love. Time stops. He knows she's the one. Feels a bit Disney, doesn't it? A bit love at first sight cheesy.
It definitely feels like a common trope. But within the internal logic of the book, it makes perfect sense. If you accept the concept of the universal language, then love isn't about dating and getting to know someone's favorite color over coffee. It's about two parts of the same overarching soul recognizing each other instantly. The text says, it is the hand that evokes love, because only that hand could write the history of the world.
So it's cosmic. But this creates a massive, massive problem for our protagonist. Santiago has a lot of money now. He has a girl he deeply loves. He's completely safe in the oasis while a war rages outside. Why on earth would he leave? He wants to stay. He wants to marry Fatima and be like an oasis counselor or something.
This is the love versus legend test. And interestingly, it's Fatima who solves it for him. She isn't a damsel who begs him to stay. She tells him, I am a woman of the desert.
She basically says, go.
She says, if I am really part of your dream, you'll come back one day. But if you stay just because of me, you'll eventually resent me. She intrinsically understands that true love doesn't put chains on someone. If love requires you to give up your personal legend, it's not actually love, it's possession.
That is a very hard lesson to swallow. But Santiago is torn. And while he's debating all of this, walking in the desert, he has a sudden vision. He sees two hawks fighting in the sky.
He reads the omen. The desert is supposed to be silent and peaceful. Fighting hawks means war. He realizes the oasis is going to be attacked.
Which is a huge claim to make, because the oasis is considered neutral ground by all the tribes. Nobody attacks an oasis, but he goes to the chieftains anyway. And these guys are intimidating. They listen to him, but they give him a terrifying ultimatum. They say, okay, we will break tradition and carry arms tomorrow. If the enemy comes, we will pay you a piece of gold for every 10 dead men, but if they don't come, we will kill you.
Talk about skin in the game. He has to bet his actual life on his intuition. But he's right. The attack comes the next day. The oasis is saved. Santiago is hailed as a hero. And that night, under the full moon, a mysterious horseman in black rides out of the desert.
Finally, the Alchemist.
And he doesn't exactly offer a warm, friendly welcome. He draws a massive scimitar and holds it right to Santiago's forehead. He asks, who is it that dares to read the meaning of the flight of the hawks?
He's testing him.
He's testing his courage. The alchemist says courage is the quality most essential to understanding the language of the world. Once he sees that Santiago doesn't flinch or beg for his life, he puts the sword away. He agrees to guide him across the rest of the dangerous desert.
Which brings us to part 5, leaving the oasis. But before they leave, the alchemist gives him that same warning we talked about earlier, the comfort trap. He tells Santiago exactly what will happen if he stays in the oasis with Fatima.
It's a devastating prophecy of regret. He says, Year 1, you'll be happy. You'll be rich and married. Year 2, the omens will keep talking to you about the treasure, and you'll actively ignore them. Year 3, your wife will start to feel guilty that she kept you here, and you'll wander the oasis feeling empty. Year 4, the omens will leave you completely, and you will spend the rest of your life knowing you failed your legend.
That terrifies Santiago enough to get him on the horse. They ride out into the deep desert. And this section of the book is almost entirely just dialogue between the boy and the alchemist. It's a philosophical masterclass.
It really is. The alchemist teaches him to listen to his heart. And Santiago complains bitterly. He says, my heart is a traitor. It tells me to go back. It's afraid.
And the alchemist gives that incredible line, tell your heart that the fear of suffering is worse than the suffering itself.
Which is so fundamentally true. The psychological anticipation of the pain is almost always worse than the actual event.
But then they get captured. Again.
Yeah.
Just when they are getting close to the pyramids, a warring tribe surrounds them. And this leads to the climax of the book, which is just wild. To save their lives, the alchemist points to Santiago and says to the chief, don't kill us. This boy is a powerful alchemist. He can destroy this entire camp with the wind. In fact, he can turn himself into the wind.
And Santiago's just standing there like, excuse me, I can do what now?
Right. He has no idea how to do that.
The alchemist buys them 3 days. He tells the chief, give him 3 days to prepare. If he doesn't transform into the wind by then, you can kill us both.
So Santiago has 3 days to perform a literal physical miracle. He spends the first 2 days absolutely terrified, just staring at the desert. But on the 3rd day, he goes up to a high cliff. The whole tribe is watching. And he begins to talk to the elements.
This scene is the metaphysical peak of the story. It is pantheism in pure action. He doesn't cast a magic spell. He has a conversation. First, he talks to the desert.
He asks the desert to help him. The desert says, I can give you my sand to blow around, but it can't create wind.
Then he talks to the wind. The wind is very arrogant. It says, I know everything. I've been everywhere. But when Santiago asks, can you turn me into the wind? The wind admits it can't. It doesn't know how to change a man. But the wind gets curious. It wants to see this happen, so it blows harder. It creates a massive sandstorm, the simum, to blot out the sun so Santiago can look up without being blinded.
So the wind is helping set the stage, but
Yeah.
it still can't do the magic. Then he talks to the sun.
The sun represents the highest wisdom in the material universe. The sun says, I see everything, I speak the language of the world fluently, but even the sun admits, I cannot turn you into the wind. The sun says, I am distinct from the hand that wrote all.
So finally, Santiago turns to the hand that wrote all. He turns to the Creator.
And notice the profound shift in the text here. He doesn't speak. There is no dialogue written out. He prays a prayer of total silence. He touches the soul of the world, and he realizes a fundamental universe-breaking truth. that his soul and the soul of God are the exact same thing. He isn't asking an external, distant deity for a favor. He is realizing that he is part of the divine. He realizes that the soul of the world is part of the soul of God, and the soul of God is his own soul.
And because he is part of the Creator, he can create.
Exactly. The wind screams, the camp is battered by the storm, tents are flying everywhere, and when the sand finally settles, Santiago is gone from the cliff and is standing on the far side of the camp.
He did it. He transformed.
He understood that there is no separation between him and the universe. It's a radical idea. It's saying that if you truly understand your place in the universe, the laws of physics are just suggestions.
The tribe is terrified, naturally. They let them go immediately, they ride on, and finally they reach a Coptic monastery. The alchemist stops. He goes into the kitchen with the monks and actually performs the physical alchemy. He melts down some lead and turns it into a disc of solid gold.
He divides it into 4 pieces, one for himself, one for the monk for his hospitality, one for Santiago to replace what the tribe took, and then he gives the 4th piece to the monk and says, this is for the boy, in case he loses his money again.
Which is funny, but also deeply wise. The alchemist says, everything that happens once can never happen again, but everything that happens twice will surely happen a 3rd time. Santiago lost his money to the thief in Tangier and to the tribe, so a 3rd loss is statistically likely.
It's a nice callback to the folklore rule of 3. But there's also a very important story the alchemist tells here at the monastery, the story of the Roman centurion.
Oh yes, let's cover that.
The alchemist tells a story about a father in heaven who is granted a vision of the future. He learns that the words of one of his sons will be remembered forever. Now, he assumes it's his poet son, but an angel tells him no, it's not the poet. It's his other son, who is a soldier, a centurion.
The soldier's words became immortal.
Right. The soldier was the one who went to a rabbi and said, I am not worthy that you should come under my roof, but only speak the word and my servant will be healed. Those words became immortal scripture. The lesson the alchemist is imparting is that everyone plays a vital role in the history of the world, usually without even knowing it.
With that final lesson, the alchemist leaves. Santiago rides the last leg of the journey completely alone. And then, as he comes over a dune, he sees them. The pyramids.
The moment he has dreamed of for years. He falls to his knees in the sand, he weeps, and where his tears hit the sand, he sees a scarab beetle scuttling along.
Which is an omen. Scarabs are sacred in Egypt. So he thinks, this is it. This is the spot. Dig right here.
He digs all night long. His hands are shredded and bleeding. He's exhausted, but he finds absolutely nothing, just more sand.
And then, out of the dark, shadows appear. Refugees from the tribal wars. They find him digging, they assume he's hiding gold in the sand, they beat him, and this is brutal, they beat him until he is nearly dead.
It is the absolute lowest point of the entire narrative. He is at the finish line, he did everything right, and he is being beaten to death. And in a desperate final attempt to save his own life, he screams the absolute truth. He yells, I'm digging for treasure, I had a recurring dream.
And the leader of the refugees stops hitting him. He looks at Santiago bleeding in the sand, and he just laughs. He calls him completely stupid. And then he delivers the twist that defines the entire book.
The refugee says, you're not going to die, you'll live, and you'll learn that a man shouldn't be so stupid. 2 years ago, right here on this exact spot, I had a recurring dream too.
Oh man, here it comes.
He says, I dreamed that I should travel to the fields of Spain and look for a ruined church where shepherds and their sheep slept. I dreamed there was a sycamore tree growing out of the sacristy ruins, and if I dug at the roots, I would find a hidden treasure. But I'm not so stupid as to cross an entire desert just because of a dream.
The irony is just overwhelming. The treasure, the actual physical chest of gold, was back in Spain the whole time. It was under the exact tree where Santiago slept in chapter 1.
The refugee had the map, but he didn't have the faith to follow it. Santiago had the faith, but he needed the refugee to give him the map.
Santiago starts laughing. He's bleeding, he's broke again, but he's just laughing at the sky.
Yeah.
Because now he knows.
He goes all the way back to Spain. He goes to the ruined church. He digs at the roots of the sycamore. And there it is, a massive chest of Spanish gold coins and precious jewels. He is rich beyond belief.
But the book doesn't end with him just counting the money.
No. The wind begins to blow again, the levanter. And on the wind, he smells a very specific perfume. He feels a soft kiss touch his lips.
Is Fatih.
And Santiago smiles and says, I'm coming, Fatima.
So the obvious question you have to ask is, if the treasure was in Spain the whole time, Why on earth did he have to go to Egypt? Was the whole journey just a massive waste of time?
That is the ultimate question of the text. If he had never left, he would have slept over that gold every single night for the rest of his life, but he never would have found it. He wouldn't have met the king, he wouldn't have met the merchant, he wouldn't have learned the language of the world, he never would have met Fatima.
The journey was the treasure.
The journey made him into the kind of person who could actually find the treasure. It's the synthesis of the spiritual and the material. He got the gold, the material reward, but he also got the wisdom, the spiritual reward. He became an alchemist himself.
Wow. Okay, that is a lot to process. It is a simple story on the surface, but the implications are so heavy.
It asks a lot of the reader. It demands self-reflection.
So as we wrap this up, I want to turn this back to you, the listener. If this book is a mirror, what are you seeing when you look into it?
I think you have to ask yourself honestly, which character are you right now? Are you the baker? Have you traded your wild dream for a safe, socially acceptable identity? Are you the crystal merchant? Are you sitting on a massive pile of potential, but you're afraid that if you use it, you'll be empty?
Or are you the refugee? Do you have the dream? Do you know exactly where the treasure is, but you think it's just too stupid to try?
Or are you willing to be Santiago? Are you willing to look foolish to your friends? Are you willing to sell your sheep? Are you willing to get beaten up at the pyramids just to find out that the answer was back home all along?
It is a powerful call to action. It's a call to pay attention to those omens, those little nudges in your life that tell you to go left instead of right.
Yeah.
And here's a final provocative thought for you to chew on. Think about that refugee who beat Santiago. He had the dream, but he ignored it. What if he had crossed the desert? What would his treasure have been? Because remember, the gold is just a symbol. If you are ignoring your own recurring dreams, what kind of treasure are you leaving buried under the floorboards of your own life?
That is a haunting thought. But remember, the core message holds up. When you want something, all the universe conspires in helping you to achieve it. You just have to take the first step. You have to buy the ticket to Tangier.
That is our deep dive on The Alchemist. I hope this helps you find your personal legend, whatever it might be. Thanks for listening.
Mekteb.
Maktub. See you next time.